Welcome to Conversations in Anarchy. This is an interesting week. We're having some technical difficulties, so those of you joining us in Zoom are the only people joining us live. We will be republishing this on Facebook and YouTube. So if you missed out this week and you were looking for us on YouTube or Facebook or DLive, make sure you go to anarchapulco.com and sign up for the Zoom series. That way you are sure to catch us every single week, no matter what happens. So, welcome. This is an exclusive Zoom event, and today's topic is super interesting. Today we're going to be talking about relationships and anarchy. And this is a really cool topic because basically society is built on relationships, and relationships are built on communication. And I kind of think everything we talk about here comes down to that. It boils down to that. So I'm Catherine. I'm co-producing this year's Anarchapulco. I manage the health and wellness ecosystem, the Anarch Awakened stage. I'm really excited about that. I run the homestead.guru. Kim's shouting out my shirt. Today is my mom's first day of chemotherapy, so please hold her in your thoughts and prayers. I am wearing this shirt in solidarity with her. She was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer a couple weeks ago, so, thank you for your loving thoughts in that regard. So again, my name is Catherine, and today I'm joined by two of my favorite people. I've really got to know them very well through the process of co-working with them here at Anarchapulco, David and Angel. David, could you please introduce yourself?
Hey, Catherine, good to see you. And on all you attendees, great to see you also. My name is David Rodriguez. I'm a multiple-year attendee at Anarchapulco. I love freedom, and this event just inspires me so much. I'm so happy to be here with you all. I'm a co-author of the Anarchist Guide to the Galaxy book and running the Free Your Family Camp stage, amongst other little things at the event. And great to be here talking about sex and anarchy and freedom and all the things about bodies and whatever else we want to get into. So I look forward to your conversations. And I will introduce you to Angel. How are you?
Hi, David. Thank you. I'm Angel. I am co-producing the Free Your Family Camp with David, and I am the editor of the Anarchist Guide to the Galaxy and the Anarchapulco blog, and happy to be talking about relationships. Let's figure this all out together. Kat, you want to tell us a little bit more about what we're talking about today?
Yes, absolutely. So I want to remind everyone that this is designed to be a conversation. So if you're joining us on Zoom, we love cameras on, no obligation to talk, but if we can see face, it makes us feel really much like a family. If you're not comfortable with that, that's okay. We do have the chat feature. And today, the conversation is exclusively here. I saw a couple people pop in late. We are having some technical difficulties, so today's conversation is only taking place in Zoom. We will be republishing these videos on Facebook and YouTube. I want to go over a couple reminders. Multiple people have mentioned in the chat the song Let's Talk About Sex, Baby. And this is another controversial subject, right? This is another subject that can get people pretty hot and heated. And I just want to remind everyone that we love each other here and that we base these conversations on nonviolent communication. So please, in how you receive information and how you present information, let's stick to love, kindness, gentleness, and just really honoring one another as human beings. Normally, I would welcome everyone from across the internet, but today it's just Zoom. So here in the chat, if you wouldn't mind typing where you're from. We want to know where in the world you are joining us, or the galaxy if you happen to be intergalactic, which is exciting as well. Okay, so we are going to start out by having a little conversation between David and Angel and I, and then we're going to open the floor. There is a little way, a little button you can push to raise your hand so that I see it pop up on my phone right here where I'm streaming from. You can also just mention in the chat or send me a private message to the account that has the still image for Catherine Bleish, not the one with the video, and I will know that you have something to say, and I will call you up. But using that hand-raising feature is the best way to get my attention because sometimes I'm not looking at the gallery view and I can't see everybody. So we really do want you to participate in this chat. If you're comfortable with your camera on, fantastical. So we want to keep our comments and questions to the point. Today we're talking about relationships. We're talking about sex. We're talking about how man and woman, or man and man, or woman and woman, or groups of people interact in this space as it pertains to anarchy. So how are anarchy and relationships interconnected? Isn't that a fascinating question and a fascinating thing to talk about? I'm pretty excited about it. And just a reminder, we are using our ebook, The Anarchist Guide to the Galaxy, as a read-along. So please go to anarchapulco.com, download our ebook. If you have not yet, read through it. It's really fantastic. David and Angel put a lot of time and energy into this read. And it's a really great tool to send to people who are new to anarchy. So if you are out there spreading the word of anarchy, this ebook is a really great way to introduce people to some of these concepts. Of course, you can introduce them to this conversation as well. We love that. So here we go. We're talking about sex. We're talking about relationships. We're talking about communication. We're talking about how people interact in this fantastic, magical world that we have. David, would you like to open the floor and launch us off on this conversation?
Yes. Sex created you and it created me. It's a beautiful thing. And if we went through some religious indoctrination or some other type of belief system, we might have had the lessons taught into us that it was dirty or evil or corrupt or all these things. And then there's also the circumcision conversation about, our bodily and being alienated from ourselves. So I think there's a few points. I think consent is going to be a main thing, and understanding, from the male perspective. I don't know if you guys have read the book or heard about the 5 love languages. That made a difference for me, right? So we communicate in different languages, and one of them is touch. And of course, there's other ones, words of affirmation, gifts, quality time, and acts of service. And so for the man, I don't know about the ladies, touch is an important thing. So for us to get into feeling love, it's like if I'm not getting touch, whether it's sex or not, holding hands, massage, these kind of things, and I start to feel love. So as sex relates to anarchy, I think as we remember that the state is intergenerational organized crime, they pervert these things. And myself being a principal of a private school that focuses on accelerated graduation, the schools, the state is coming in to teach children about sex in really perverted ways, in ways that parents could be teaching them. And I think ideally that's the best scenarios. The parents talk about these issues, but let's talk about these things. And I think in relationships, the conversation can get a little bit uncomfortable because I'm not healed as a man, or the female's not healed, or however, whatever game you play on. But for me, the heterosexual man, that's the game I play on. And so having that conversation of, feeling open and understand this is a very intimate aspect of being human. And so to share that, whether it's a short-term or a long-term relationship, to be open and to communicate what is comfortable for us, or our needs or our wants, I think is really important. And if we don't have this kind of community we're creating right now to feel safe, where are we going to talk about sex? You're going to go to your parents, you're going to talk to some religious person or some friends or whoever it is. But I think building that community and creating this digital, space where we can talk about these kind of questions and really what is the correct, or I should say moral way to proceed in the sexual activities. And, girls, help us guys out. Some of us can't, read clues or cues. So we have to be kind of, judicious in making the initiation. So, if someone makes a move, me or some other guy, be kind in your rejection, I ask. And then guys also be aware that some women don't want to be touched or they have had abuse in their life. So maybe just a touch on the arm could be viewed as assault or whatever, however it's interpreted. You got to get permission. And so it's always good to ask and proceed with their consent. And I think that's where I want to kind of tee up with it today, and then learn from the ladies, and then discuss, that we don't need the state, but we do have to have our own little boundaries and understandings for human respect and for their self-ownership and the non-aggression principle. So that's what I want to share. How about you, Angel? How would you like to open up?
Wow, relationships, it's crazy. I almost don't even know what to say. There's so much you could say. There's so much that we're always learning from day to day while going, having our own relationships, having them fail, having them work out, and those kinds of things. And so, this is Conversations in Anarchy, and certainly we are going to discuss how we involve the state in our relationships, how the state is involved in marriages, how the state is involved in teaching our kids about, and maybe not even teaching our kids, but how they remove them from a lot of the ways that they do learn about relationships and learn to be healthy in relationships, and how we need to take more ownership of that role as parents. And then also just being empathetic. There's a lot of stuff happening in the country, especially with some of the more feminist movements, where it's becoming difficult, I think, for men and women to interact with each other and figure out where the boundaries are and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And that's a learning process. It's something that happens throughout life. But there are certain groups out there who want to codify everything into law and who want to create these, there are places where you have to explicitly get written now. And I think I understand the reasons, but I think we need to talk about what it means to create this barrier between men and women, or women and women, or men and men, whatever it is, between people trying to have intimate relationships who are trying to figure it out. And so that's we're all just trying to figure this out. I think you sense that I'm I don't have the answers, but I do know empathy, and this is the theme throughout all of our talks. Is empathy is really the way. Empathy, understanding, and really trying to communicate with people honestly, openly, and taking other people's feelings into consideration. So, I don't know. Catherine, tell me everything you know about relationships right now. Let me get a pen.
Boy, they're messy. That's all I know, is that relationships are messy in the most beautifully fantastic, gruesome ways, right? I mean, relationships, they really can be the greatest joy in one's life and the greatest misery. And I think it's really important that we, as individuals who are trying to create a society of anarchists, voluntarists, people who really do want to exist without the coercive force of the state, that we are functioning in awareness of the relationships that we are participating in. And that is just one of the greatest lessons of my anarchist journey, is to be diligent. And as my partner Pablo says, judgment is everything. And there's a reason that we have judgment. It's to make safe choices and to participate in relationship with people who, and that is really important, because it's easy we want everyone to be anarchists. So it's easy sometimes, I think, for our movement to say, as long as you say you're an anarchist, come here, let's work together, let's build a life together, let's do whatever. And what I've come to realize is that it's okay to be picky, and it's okay to have standards in your relationships, and that just because is aligned with you politically, philosophically, doesn't mean you need to create a family with them. And just because maybe you have some sort of sexual chemistry with them doesn't mean you need to create a family with them. And if we want to build a society that's really stable, just functioning in awareness of this and healing our own traumas, so that we are making informed decisions when it comes to relationships. So for me, what I'm hearing from David and from Angel, this concept of consent. I really want to jump into the circumcision stuff, and I'm hearing the state involvement in relationships, and I'm thinking it might be neat. We have Payasa on the call, who's one of our speakers, and she's done a lot of research about circumcision, and I'm thinking, what if we start with consent? Hell yeah, right? And from birth, at what age do we need to consent to somebody mutilating our genitalia, touching it in a way other than hygienically, in terms of infants?
Okay,
Where does consent begin? Consent itself in the we learn. Yes.
okay, I think, Kat, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but it looks like we are losing you a little bit.
A little bit choppy.
But
She was asking about the age of like consent on the genitals. I don't know if you have some thoughts on that, Angel, but it's like, I mean, if this is my genitalia, I don't want anybody touching it. I mean, at what age can I say this is mine and I don't want anybody cutting me up? I mean, that would be my initial feeling is like, who are you guys? And this whole practice, you know, if you also can talk about it a little later if you want, like it's passed down intergeneration, like what is going on here? And I think if I shared before conversations is I'm starting to like become aware of the trauma of like, you know, you kind of feel alien in your own body in some ways. You feel like not connected to yourself. It's like, why? Because they were following either a religious practice or a state hospital practice or whatever that might be. And it seems because, you know, this has been intergenerational, right? So they want to disempower the masculine and make them, well, I would say kind of weak and maybe become the feminine and rather be in that warrior, that protector type mentality where it's like, no, I want to protect the feminine. I want to lay my life down, protect the kids or, you know, our partners or these kind of other beings that are worthy of, you know, my life. And so this is a side note, but we'll talk about this, but like sex transmutation is very interesting to me, you know? So like using the sex energy as a force, whether as you express it sexually or, and I got this term and phrase from Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, where he says you use that to transmute it, to put into your passion or your art or your work or something. So you don't necessarily have to go out and express it sexually, but to become aware of it. And I think Tesla did the same thing, was he used that energy to think of his creative inspirations and to create, you know, amazing inventions because he was using that force. Now, this is like Angel had mentioned, we're learning this and practicing this. So I don't know if there's a great answer. However, I did take a Tantra course by a guy named Charles Muir, and he said he would have sex and he wouldn't ejaculate for weeks at a time. And that just blew my mind because I never heard of that type of intention, that benefit, the, you know, the restraint. And so, you know, that allows him to, you know, participate and engage in those ways and retain that energy. So I'm curious if that makes any sense, or if you feel that that sexual energy or whatever, as I don't know if Kat's connected here, but if Angel, you want to talk about maybe the age of consent or the sexual energy, but how it can be transmuted into something more powerful and more expressive, which can liberate us as human beings in general.
The age of consent, okay, so if we're talking about, maybe we're talking about two different things.
Well,
right?
Could be two things, the genital and even age of consent to have sex. I mean, this is another topic I think we could probably dive into.
That's another one I don't want to dive into. But
I'll touch it later. If you want.
If we're going to start really early on and talk about, you know, our sexual genitalia and who has a right, I mean, I actually want to, I don't know, Payasa, if you want to come in on the call and talk. Payasa is actually going to be a speaker at Anarchapulco 2020 and is very passionate about a number of things, actually. And I think, you know, it's great that you're here in this conversation because I know that you teach Tantra, I think, and but you're also really passionate about protecting people, protecting little boys. Payasa, I'm going to unmute you, and then maybe you can come join the conversation, let us know what you think about relationships, and maybe create a bridge for us between, you know, like these childhood traumas, what is essentially what they are, and, you know, where we are today and where, you know, how we move forward from that.
Thank you. Hi, Angela. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Well, I guess I've just been really enjoying the conversation that you all have started. Everybody has so much important, you know, aspects to share. And so what I was thinking about, what was coming to me in relation to the age of consent, or, well, actually with circumcision and boundaries, is that when we have an experience of such intense trauma, especially when we're really young, we don't even have it doesn't train us or teach us to have boundaries. And so the same goes for, sexual abuse, and even down to just little things about parenting, where we're teaching children to do something that is going along with our agenda. So when we get controlled and programmed and conditioned by our parents who really had good intentions, hopefully they had good intentions. They might be wanting to have you do something because it makes it easier for them, but it's not really something that you want. So this is like the beginning of our education of consent, of knowing what we want for our own bodies. I would say that's something that was coming up for me in that conversation, which kind of brings all of it together, I think. And so part of it is relearning, is coming back into the body so that we can really be present in what we want. Because so often, so many of us have been violated to all different degrees. And so it's confusing.
I love that you said that. It's making me think about how frequently I see parents imposing things upon children and not respecting their boundaries and not respecting their space. And then I don't know how we can go from these really, really kind of hostile and like, kids are subjects. They're subject to so much, and they learn that that's how you communicate and that's how you enter someone's space. I see it all of the time when I'm out and about in the world, especially at the playground. And how would those kids learn, to interact, to have interactions that are consent-based, that are respectful, that aren't imposing upon someone or being subject to someone such that you don't feel confident or comfortable saying no. A lot of what the problems that we have right now that I've seen in the media is really, one part of it is people not taking no for an answer, not reading clues, but another part of it is just individuals not having the confidence to say no, to be okay with saying no, and to, and not to feel bad about having to have said no, right? Like, no one's supposed to approach you because you don't like the feeling of having to say no to someone. I think that's a really odd way to be. You have to be pretty confident in yourself, resolute, and know who you are so that you can go forth in the world and have people kind of experiment with, figuring out how to interact with you and not being, scared by that and whatnot. So yeah, I really like that idea. All the parents out there, listen, because think about how you are interacting with your kids and think about how they move that forward to their relationships in the future.
And, something really important, Angel, now this time of year is when it comes to the holidays, parents are exposing their children to Express of America published an article saying, don't force.
I think you're about to say, don't force your kids to sit on
your little girls to hug extended family members if they're not comfortable.
Oh, okay. I think we went two different places.
It's the same concept, though. It's the same concept as self-ownership. I think that's a really important thing, is to help them understand, depending on what your parenting philosophy is, that they own this body, and you don't have to, give hugs, as you mentioned previous, Kat, or, go sit on other people's laps. And I think it was my mom who told me, this was years ago, she would go visit some uncle, right, and an uncle would give her like some sloppy kiss or something. And it was just like, she felt obligated. Why? Because the parents around her, God bless my grandparents, rest in peace, right? But like, they didn't teach her that, there's all these cultural norms. And I think through this conversation and through the event that we're producing here is that we want to help you, whatever age you are, remember that you own this flesh, you own this body, and nobody can make you do anything without your consent. Even if they write a funny language on a piece of paper in cursive and they all sign it, including John Hancock, hey, that was all great intention. Declaration of Independence has some good things, but it's like, it's time to evolve beyond that piece of paper. It's time to evolve beyond some people forcing us to do things because, this law says it, but although it violates our own morality, it violates our own beliefs, and it makes us be like lie to ourselves. It makes us be dishonest with ourselves. Whereas I had a friend, I think her son's probably 10 years old now, but he was like 5. And she's kind of told the same thing, was that she taught him that somebody has to get your permission. And so same thing, he went to a family function, the young kid in the family, and some family member tried to come pick up the boy, and he said what you said. He said, no, you need my permission, like this, and did a little thing like this with the little arms there. And it's like, maybe the parent was offended or whatever, but it doesn't matter. That's a true statement. That is his body. And then, as you're relating to, Kat, because I think sexual abuse among young women, maybe young boys too, is by extended family members. It's by the uncle, the cousin, or somebody without their consent, without their permission, and that can put them on a path that leads them maybe towards some other destructive type, lifestyle or way of being that is disempowering and dishonest to how she really wants to live. Because I think we all want to live, exciting, love-filled life, fulfilled and happy. But if we're alienated from ourselves, or we feel like, I don't own this body, I am disempowered from who I am. Whereas if they can learn that and realize I can say no, and I think that's what's happening, through this conversation, we're saying no to the state, we're saying to no to all these rules. But Kat, if you had the connection there, what is your thoughts on this here?
Okay, can you hear me? How do I sound?
Good.
We're good. Okay. I'm on my 3rd internet connection. I went from cell phone to house to Skyroam. So I think this is a really important conversation, because I think in romantic relationships, consent really begins in our childhood. And like Payaso was saying, the way parents train or program a child, it literally impacts us into our adulthood and into our marriages, if we marry, our romantic relationships. And what I was trying to bring up was this Girl Scouts of America article that says you should not force little girls to hug extended family members. I also believe that applies to little boys and handshakes or hugs. And like Angel was saying, I believe that applies to Santa as well. You see these pictures of children screaming and crying in a stranger's lap. That's not good, right? And right there, you're teaching them, don't say no to an adult who wants to touch you in a way you don't want to be touched. And that right there is incredibly traumatic. And so if that is the way you're raising a child, imagine what happens when they move into adulthood. They're in college, they've had a couple beers, and there's a guy, like, whoa, what then? How is a young girl, and I'm speaking from a girl's perspective because I am a girl, how is a young girl then supposed to interact with the world? I'm really blessed in that my parents taught me very strong boundaries. My mother was very clear about say no. No one has to touch you ever that you don't want to touch. I was never forced to hug. I was never forced to handshake or sit in people's laps. And I'm grateful for that. But boundaries were still an issue for me as I grew into adulthood. And I think it will be an ongoing issue, especially in the culture in which we live, because there are so many places where consent is taken away from us, whether it's public schooling or parents forcing kids to attend church, whatever it may be. When consent is taken away at a young age, it makes it very difficult to learn how to then ask for consent or set boundaries when you're an adult.
Yeah.
So, how then, I guess my question is, one, raising children, knowing what consent is. We can start with the kids we have now, but what happens then when you already have children who have been raised in this way, who have no idea of what a healthy boundary is, who don't know their internal yes or no because it's always been told to them? How then do they learn the skills in the world to create consent-based relationships? Because I think this is ultimately like the root of the 7 to 10 year divorce, right? Where it's like you enter a relationship, your boundaries have been walked all over in one way or another on both sides of the coin for both people, because both people were raised in this trauma-based society, right? And then you're untangling through divorce and, you find yourself, you learn how to manifest a partner. Is there a way to learn these things without going through a traumatic relationship? That's what I'm wondering. Anyone have any thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
I'll give it to you, Angel, if you're going to say something there. But like, I think the key of all this is right, is simplicity, right? I think it was Einstein who said any fool can make a complicated subject or a simple subject complicated. It takes a real smart person or a wise person to make a complicated subject simple. And I think it comes down to self-knowledge, right? Knowing ourselves and understanding we are conscious of self. And there's a lot of, I would say, intelligent beings or organisms out there, but to know that we are existing, to know that we are human and we can actually articulate our thoughts and even create art and do these amazing things makes us different, in my opinion, from other species out there. And so what I just thought of when you're bringing up boundaries, Catherine, is that you remember the story of the Olympics gymnastics doctor who like violated like 20 or 30 of these teenage girls. And so to be an Olympics gold medalist or, medalist in general, you come from a wealthy family or a family that loves you, but they didn't know boundaries. They didn't know what was right or wrong, but apparently he was doing really immoral, violating things, and now he's being charged. I think he's in prison now, but that went on for decades. And this is the Olympics gymnastics doctor surrounded by good families. And so this is why I get so passionate about the schools, because they divide the student, the child, from the parent. And that's exactly what's happening through statism. The state wants to become the new parent and the new authority. So helping children understand they're their own authority, right? As long as you don't violate the person or the property of another person, of another human being, then you can do it, right? You got to get permission and ask, but like, you can't violate their body, their self-ownership, and they can't do that to you. And if they are, you can defend yourself or you can speak up about it. But it's like this new vision of where we're trying to propel humanity through these conversations. So this doesn't happen to children. So this doesn't happen for, divorces and hurt feelings and things like that. It's like, I've had relationships too, where it's like, I was attractive, but I didn't know what I wanted exactly. And so you got to kind of go your separate ways. And then in the darkness of your own heart and your own feelings and learning, reflection, you're like, oh, okay, now I know. I'm getting clearer on what I want, right? Now I know exactly what it is. And so without that understanding of self, understanding that I am a human and that intention to learn and understand this is a journey, this is kind of a lifelong quest, lifelong education versus, you get a man and a woman, you get together and, some cultures, they actually force marriage. It's like, my gosh, could you imagine the violation that you must feel on both sides in that situation? So just helping young people realize that they are their own authority can, I think, maybe prevent some of these things. But self-knowledge, I think, is the key on preventing some of these painful relationships that many of us have gone through. Any thoughts, Angel?
Can I just say also, because we're talking about relationships and we're talking about consent with like physical interactions, but I think you also just need to be willing to let your children say no. I mean, in general, just no. Hey, will you go do this? And they say no. And sometimes that's okay. I think it can't be piecemeal. I think you have to communicate with your children in a way that they know that no is an option, but you give them reasons for yes to be the option and not just being subject to your rule and punishment, but that they come to the conclusion. And that we were talking about this before, because my daughter says no to me all the time, all the time. Hey, can you go turn off the light? No. and then I have this moment where like I have to, think to myself, wow, okay, what am I going to do? Right? Like, she just doesn't want to do this. And it's not a matter of what I said or if you don't do this, because that's the interaction. I watched somebody with her one day. She was doing something they didn't want her to do. And the threat made was, I'm just going to leave you, because she wouldn't do the thing. And so in my mind, that's what you're building for her. These kinds of interactions. That's what you're teaching her, that her interactions will be in the future. So I really think it's important that we as parents just allow our children to be independent, to allow them to be themselves and to respect their no's, whatever those no's are, and find better ways to get to the yeses that we want. And which means that you have to be patient and you have to take time, and then you really grow respect, a mutual respectful relationship with your kids. And if you do that, I do think they're going to take it into all of their relationships.
Well, and don't you think, Angel, if our parents had raised us that way, that, and I say our in a very broad sense, but culturally, if parents were using their negotiation skills to communicate with children as opposed to forcing them, spanking them, yelling at them, whatever, that we would all have a better go at life in business and romantic relationships, because we would have been learning these communication skills from infanthood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
super interesting stuff.
I think negotiation seems to be like one of the most important skills ever. And, somebody who went to business college and didn't learn much, and specifically didn't learn anything about negotiating, life is a negotiation. So whether it's Angel asking her her daughter to turn the lights on, or you're inviting a girl to go on a date with you, or a man to go to dinner with you, or whatever the relationship is, it's a negotiation. It's like, let's grab some coffee or let's grab some that. But then, as we were talking about in previous weeks, a rejection is not a reflection of my worth to myself. It is a rejection of my offer to her to go grab coffee. So we have to separate the two. So if you're going out to approach somebody or get a phone number or whatever it is, we have to increase our self-esteem and our self-worth, going back to self-knowledge and our innate value as a human. And whether we have a family or not, if we're an orphan, we are valuable in and of ourselves because we're human. And whatever you believe about how we got here, there's a special spirit, there's a special light that is inside of us. So when I'm going out there to remind myself about that, because going through 12 years of compulsory schooling and then more college afterwards, and nobody talking about this stuff, right? I mentioned the tantric weekend was like 3 days, but like that was the best 3 days ever, learning about the bodily functions of myself, the bodily functions of the lady, in a nice environment where it's like, oh, that's how this thing works. Oh, that's what they like. Oh my God. Because it's not, many of you notice, life is not a porno video, right? That's not how the game works. There's more communication involved. So to understand how that body works and to seek that information and to be around like, oh, that's interesting. I respect your body, and hopefully you reciprocate, because it's not their violation is the key error, the key sin or whatever. It's like, we don't want to be violated. And so this can be confused as we're trying to like make the move. But as we increase our self-esteem, and I mean, this is a whole nother conversation, how to do that, but like remembering you're already valuable the way you are, and a rejection of your offer is only rejection of your offer. It's not rejection of who you are. So to just go ask more ladies or go ask more guys, plenty fish in the sea, but you don't have to feel desperate like, this is my last chance. It's like, no, there's a lot of people, go find good people at Anarchapulco or wherever you are, and you'll find good humans out there that want to participate in your love life or, sex life or wherever you want to, join in together. But that's one of the key distinctions too, is like people have different values, and, it's not a rejection of me, it's just offer.
Yeah, I go to this ecstatic dance. Well, actually, I'll tell this story in a second because I really want to hear what you have to say, Piazza.
I don't know how to wave my hand with the Zoom.
Oh, no, go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
I just wanted to say
we saw you.
What David was thank you. In response to what David was sharing about it's not a rejection of you, it's really a no to something is a yes to something else, or a no to something is a yes to me. So really knowing that when I say no to something, it's because I'm saying yes to myself. And there are some really gracious ways to take a no. If you want to go and you ask somebody to go have a coffee or something and they're like, no, thank you. You can say, thank you for respecting yourself, or thank you for taking care of yourself, or awesome. Or, I appreciate knowing where your boundary is, depending on, whatever it is that you're asking somebody to do. But so that you can also affirm, thank you. Thank you. That's actually a tantric exercise that we do sometimes in a double circle, like an inner outer circle. Is just practicing. Can I kiss you on the cheek? And maybe that's a yes. And because boundaries can be flexible, right? So I might have a boundary one day, and maybe you ask me for a coffee another day, and maybe I feel like it. It's like something in me has changed. Not to say, just keep asking over and over. There's a fine line, but our boundaries are flexible, and our boundaries are taking care of it's self-care to take care of ourself, to know where our boundary is and to have the confidence to be able to say, no, thank you. That's not easy for a lot of women, as Catherine was saying. Many of us weren't raised to say that, to feel comfortable to say no. So, so there's a lot of nice ways that you can say, thank you for saying no to me. That's my point.
I love that. And I'm going to piggyback off of that because I go to this ecstatic dance, and one of my favorite, it's a morning ecstatic dance, and we all get together and we move and we dance together. We dance by ourselves. And one of the things I really like about this dance is before it begins, there's a little session that takes place where they go, hey, this is how we operate. Here's how, maybe if you want to approach someone, here's how you approach someone. And maybe that, and to pick up on body language. Are they looking at you, or are they looking away? Are they moving toward you? Are they turning away from you? Notice those things. But then if you see that someone doesn't want to dance, maybe they're vibing by themselves, right? Maybe they've got something that they're working out. Maybe the energy isn't right for them. Maybe the flow isn't right, but it's not about you, it's about them. And it's like you said, Payas, they're just saying yes to themselves. And that's a beautiful thing, to just know that they are taking care of themselves, and that releases you from being, because if you think about it, the alternative is that maybe they really don't want to dance, but they don't feel like they can say, I don't want to dance. And so they sit there and they dance with you, and the energy's off, and it doesn't feel good for anybody, right? I would much prefer you take care of yourself and you stay in your great energy, and I am released to go dance with someone who wants to share energy with me. And I think that, that's how we should approach all relationships, is just allow people to take care of themselves, because then the people who do come into contact with you, that shit's going to be magic sometimes.
Well, hopefully it'll be magic. I know from my personal experience, there's been one example in my life where I continued to pursue somebody who was giving me the cues that they weren't interested in. And it ended up being the most traumatic relationship of my life. I kind of emotionally imposed myself on this person, and it wreaked havoc through both of our lives. And if I had just listened to the initial cues of nope, not feeling it, and people surrounding us saying probably not a good fit, maybe things would have unfolded differently. And something I've noticed, which Payasi talking about the flexibility of boundaries, is with my son. Some days he does not want me to kiss him. Some days he does. And when he was smaller, I used to force him and kiss him, and he'd pull away. And then something kind of hit me oh, wait, I shouldn't be doing this. He needs to know that it's okay to say no, even to me. And so I think, this is really important that we remember, one, boundaries are flexible. They can be flexible. I can be a yes right now and a no in 5 minutes. I can be a no right now and a yes tomorrow, and that's okay. But that there's this beautiful boundary between, pestering somebody and getting in their bubble. And so maybe someone wants to dance with you for one song, but not two. Or maybe somebody wants to not dance with you this week, but they're feeling real outgoing the next week. And it's okay, to flow between your space and shared space. And as we become more comfortable in our power and asserting our boundaries, I think that gives other people permission to exert theirs. And I think that's really important, that in our romantic relationships, as we are being clear about what's okay for us, that we're also welcoming that, from the other person. And I think that's really empowering in a partnership. And I want to make it clear, we are anarchists and we believe in consensual relationships. So I'm saying partnership, but that doesn't necessarily have to be between two people, right? There's all sorts of different types of relationship styles and formations that exist in this world. And as long as they're consensual, that's really what matters here.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some comments here about some movies. I appreciate the comments there because for us, like me, I didn't get the sex talk, from my parents. I'm curious about you ladies and the people watching here. So I learned about it from Penthouse magazines or from pornos or from movies, right? So if that's my only impression of love, then that's the only impression I got, right? So it's in later time where you start to learn about the spiritual aspect of it. And of course, these great ideas of voluntarism, self-ownership, anarchy, where it's like, oh, there's like another human. That's another person's, that's another guy's daughter. It's like just like my mom loved me, my parents love me. Some parents love that daughter. So if our only initiation is through movies, and I think someone on the team here was talking about watching 007 movies also, it's like James Bond throws down the woman and like basically rapes her. And it's like, I'm the man's man, right? And it's like, I'm going to be James Bond, whatever the beat is right there, right? Like, so it's like, if that's the only way we understand sex or love, then that's how we're going to proceed. So as parents and adults, we have to understand that these television shows, this is all marketing. This is all marketing, sales, and you got to understand the agenda behind that is to, my opinion, to break up the family in general, to actually divide the masculine from the feminine, because some of you out there have experienced it or maybe want to. I've tasted a little bit in my life where it was like they're couples together and you feel really good energy, not just sexually, but spiritually or health-wise or like hobbies-wise. And you're like, damn, this is fucking cool, man. Like, we can really do some stuff. And you get that initial urge of power, like, we can do something. So I believe like a couple that's on the same wavelength could basically conquer the world, right? Because you're understanding each other, you're having compassion on each other, you're supporting each other in your own ways, you're communicating what you need or what you like, what you prefer. And it's like, I found the soulmate, and you get that initial kind of glimpse made behind the veil of, this is why we're here, right? Like, this is what life's all about. And of course, it's not all, butterflies and rainbows, but if you can meet somebody or be that somebody where you're aware of yourself and aware of your own understanding of, like, this is the human experience, we ain't going to be here forever. I think there's a really important value. Understand this is a temporary or seemingly temporary, initial experience. So what is love and how to proceed with respect and empowerment? But watching the TVs and the movies is just it's a complete joke. So, there are this consciousness of humanity is increasing. We're awakening to ourselves. We are the ones who've been seeking, and to understand that love definitely is the answer, and how to practice it and not fall victim to the television shows, the movies that just corrupt it all and divide us and convolute the purity of actual love and the expression to the physical manifestation. I think it's something to be aware of, is worthy to be aware of too.
Yeah. David, what do you think? I don't want to gloss over it because I really think this might be a big thing, and you mentioned it, but like right now there's access to porn. It's everywhere, and kids have access to it in a way that they didn't. Like, I didn't have access to porn in the way that kids have access to porn right now. So my relationships when I was young, when I was a teenager and kind of exploring guys, it was really just an exploration. But I think now teens go into it with a lot more information, and not necessarily good or valid information. They're watching all of this, they're consuming so much of it, and then they're in front of a real girl or a real boy, and then what, right? What do you think about that?
I think it's a really important thing, because this global state, which some of you may be aware of, I think it was Warburg said on the Senate floor in the 50s, there will be a world government either by conquest or by consent. This is a real serious thing. Also look up Carol Quigley, Tragedy and Hope. So they have to use the sex energy because they know it's a really powerful force. And also there's a great talk by Becca Shigani from Anarchapulco 2019. I recommend you guys check out, where she goes into the depths of it as well. But having to talk with them about what is sex and what's, why is it good and how it is. I mean, really, just like talking about the school system, if your child's in the public school system, they can still make it out as a smart, intelligent being. And if they know that the school system is a social engineering institution, they won't believe it's real. Like when I was watching porn, I was like, that's real. That's how sex is. So if you're in school and you're like, this is just an engineering thing that got bells, and you're watching a porno and you're like, this is all a show, it's all acting. And as far as like easy accessibility, I mean, we're living in the information age. So that's why I say parents, it's almost time for parents, all of us adults who have kids in our lives, to be the courageous, bold ones to have these conversations and to kind of preempt it, you know? So how to do that without saying that it's bad, or unless you believe that it's bad. You know, I'm not gonna tell you what to believe, but I just believe it's a beautiful thing. It's an empowering thing. And to have connection to myself is it's vital, you know? As Piazza mentioned, self-care. I didn't even hear that word self-care until like, I don't know, late 20s or 30s or something. Like, what the hell is self-care? It's taking care of yourself, because nobody's going to take care of yourself. It's called personal responsibility, and you got to be your own best friend. You know, it's like, oh, I want to join that circle, you know, in school, or that guys, and be that. Dude, we got to be our own best friends. You know, we're born alone. We're going to die alone. So in the meantime, you might have a partner. You can ride along each other in this journey of life together, but ultimately it's us finding out the depths of our soul, who we are, what do we like, what do we prefer, and having that sex conversation, I think, is really crucial. And for young people, you know, like in my life, if they ask me real questions, I'll give them real answers. I don't know how to give them the whole encyclopedia version, but as a young boy growing up, I just wanted the truth. Just tell me the truth, even if it's ugly or nasty or messy or whatever. I just want to know what the hell's going on, because I can feel something is amazing happening inside me as a kid, as a boy. And then you start to go through experiences and you're like, yes, being a human, this is a big fucking deal, man. This ain't no joke. This is a really powerful thing. And so what the state does is they dehumanize people. They demoralize people. So like human life, oh yeah. Do you remember Madeleine Albright? She said 500,000 children were killed. You know, this was the Kuwait War. And she says, yeah, it's a real tough choice, but I think it was worth it. It's like, dude, you thinking 500,000 kids dying is worth it in war? You're crazy. You're absolutely insane, you statist. And so there's a mass murder type philosophy in the statist ideology. And so one life matters. You know, I've mentioned it before. There's a great movie called The Power of One. And I love that movie. It's something I'd recommend you buy the DVD. But it just goes to the importance of that one person, which is you. You are the one. Your child is the one. And to help them realize that, then they respect that, you know. And, you know, some of the benefits of the Christian upbringing, the body's a temple. And maybe that's not Christian only. Maybe other philosophies believe it too. But this is a temple. And so how to respect that and realize those guys are getting paid, however much they're getting paid to go out and do what they do. And that's fine. This seems to be voluntary to me. But preempting it and the importance of sex, parents, man, we got to have these conversations, as uncomfortable as it might be. You know, like, I mean, this is another conversation. Maybe you or Kat want to touch on it, how you have had that conversation or intend to, or some of the other people out there. But it's like, you know, the body's changing. You know, I went from a boy and we started to grow hair. This is natural, normal. It's not bad. It's just when the state introduces it, and you might have seen the curriculum, they're talking about cucumbers and bananas, and they're recommending you wear, you put condoms on those things and shove those things in your different orifices. It's like, are you serious? You're forcing children to go to these schools, and that's what you're teaching them that's for? They're perverting it, and they're dehumanizing it. So it's just like they're treating their body like a woodshed instead of treating their body like a temple.
Yes, absolutely. So, David, it's interesting to me that you grew up learning about sex kind of from porn, whereas my very sheltered childhood, I got to college and plugged in cable TV, and I thought MTV was porn. I thought I was going to get in trouble. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this on the TV? I was humiliated. I was terrified. It was traumatic. And some people told me, like, this is MTV. What is your problem? And I'm like, I have never seen anything like this before. And so for me, it was like, I had the church telling me, you know, no premarital sex, period, the end. There's really no more conversation other than that. And then at school, it's like all this genitalia covered in like herpes, and here's pictures of what can happen. And I'm like, sex was terrifying, right? And so, like Angel was saying, this exploration, for me, it was a very timid exploration, you know, like, I don't know about this, you know. But porn's really interesting to me. This is something that has affected relationships that I've had in my life. And it's not something that I have ever pursued. I don't feel the need for it. But I am curious, Payasa, and Michael, I saw your hand go up and I want to call you in next, but I wanted to quickly address Payasa and just see, in your work that you do, have you found that pornography has an impact on either individuals or couples? And is it a positive one, a negative one, or does it kind of vary between circumstance?
Am I unmuted?
Yeah.
You're unmuted, yes.
Definitely it varies between circumstance. I would say that I have definitely worked with a lot of women who are very upset about their partners being into porn. That's definitely something that really commonly happens. And what did you ask me, if it's detrimental? Did you ask me that?
Just what the effects were on the individual or the couple.
Well, it changes the brain, the neurobiology of the brain. It actually literally changes the brain. And it's, I mean, from my perspective, a lot of what it is really coming into the mind rather than being in the body with our sexuality. So, you know, we become more and more disembodied. And to me, that's where the damage can come, besides the fact that it really does change the neurobiology, is that it becomes difficult for people to be more present to real life situations and real life sexual intimacy. Because, yeah, there's these programs, but even in the physical body, the response changes. So, yeah. And I was going to say something about children, pornography with your children. It made me think, when we build deep relationships with our children and they have trust in us, and then if we want to have a conversation about pornography and explain how we feel, most likely they're going to respect the information that you're bringing, you know. So you could share some of these facts, because there are scientific, you know, studies that have been done about the effects of pornography in the brain and like that. So I think you can just share that and have an open conversation, and then it's like with everything, you know, it's we want to accept a no if they have a no, and it even goes beyond turning on or off the light, which I like that example. But it's even, you know, it's cold outside and the child wants to go outside, your son or your daughter, and they don't want to wear clothes, or they're not, you know, so whose body is it? So maybe you can allow them to learn on their own also. You could explain something. You know, I really think that you really need to wear clothes, or you're going to be cold if you don't wear clothes. But if you absolutely refuse, it's your body. That's what we need to encourage and affirm, is it is your body. And go along and explain why you might want them to wear the clothes. Yeah.
You know, this is something that my children actually used to have a lot of conflict with their father about, and with shoes, right? And shoes, whether they have to wear shoes or not. And I'm like, whatever. I hardly wear shoes ever anyway. And I found that when my kids walked out onto the concrete in Acapulco, Mexico, they turned around and put on their flip-flops. And at my parents' house last winter, when my son wanted to walk out into the snow barefoot, he walked outside and turned around and put on his boots. There was no conflict needed because he does own his body, and he experienced very quickly what hot cement feels like and what cold snow feels like, and decided in those circumstances, shoes were his preference, and he put them on. Also, my children are 8 and 6, and we have chickens, and they have seen the rooster mounting the hen, and they understand the cycle of life. They've watched my dog on the beach with this Acapulco female dog. I mean, the whole Acapulco beach, everybody got to see what was going on. But when you're allowing your children to experience life, which is what I really like about homeschooling, is that you're exposing your children to real life, which includes sex, which includes death. And when they're witnessing it in the animal kingdom, it allows them to really, you know, extrapolate that into the human animal and to understand themselves a little bit better. So my children understand where pregnancy comes from and how eggs are fertilized and what sperm is. And we talk about this. And it's not weird or taboo or controversial because they've just grown up seeing it happen. And what is that rooster doing to that hen? You know, and then we have a conversation about it. Now, Michael, I'm not ignoring you and I don't want to stray off too far. I know you raised your hand like 15 minutes ago. Come on, come unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Welcome. Yes.
Hey, Piazza. It's good to see you. My question, or I've actually got a question, I think, to some degree, because, you know, the greater society has got a lot of problems. And, you know, that's one of the things that I think we've got to have an answer for, is the fact that, you know, like the average person these days, they don't even really understand what love is. They're more kind of like a conditional love. And then on top of that, you've got the social media and stuff that is essentially, you know, I don't know if you've watched that latest thing with True Stream Media, but they just put out a video in regard to the Facebook scientists and stuff, saying they're ripping apart the social fabric of society and stuff like that. You know, so we've got all this bad stuff headed our way for the future of society. And, you know, we really have to offer a alternative to what this is. And I think it's an opportunity because, you know, these people are going to be damaged in a lot of ways, and probably more damaged than the society is today. And certainly, like, things like, even with the social media and the smartphones and stuff, you know, the amount of attention that they actually get to pay to other people in real life is another area that I'm a little bit worried about, you know, because, like, the average person these days is lonely, you know, and they don't even know how to relate to other people. And then they're utilizing an artificial apparatus, the computer, instead of actually understanding how to learn, like, body language and stuff like that. So we're really talking about people that are emotionally, you know, their emotional intelligence is, like, declining. And what are we going to do about it? And what can we do about it?
Phone away. If you are on a date with somebody, please put your phone away. I see this all the time. How are you guys connecting? They just on the phone. Oh, it's time to order now. I mean, put your phone away. Put it away for a few hours. No one's like, we grew up without phones. So no, most of the time, everybody's going to be okay for the few hours that you put your phone away and actually get to know the person in front of you and connect with them.
I think that's important, not just in romantic relationships, but in parenting relationships, because right now we are raising a generation of children who have all this access to technology that we did not have. How is that going to impact their romantic relationships in adulthood, right? If they never had a parent who could get off of their phone, are they going to be able to connect with somebody? And this is where I think Tantra and these, you know, self-care things really come into a place of importance. And a lot of people may not understand what Tantra is, and I want to be clear that it's not just a energetic exchange between another person, but Tantra is a self-exploration and a self-journey. And I first learned about Tantra through meditation. The word came to me like the voice of God, Tantra. And when I Googled it and I found out that these movements that I was doing in yoga and the breath work and the meditation, that's all Tantra. And when you are participating, some people call it white Tantra, which is the Tantra, the relationship with the self. And you partner with another human being who's doing the same inner work. And you move into the red Tantra, the couples Tantra, where you can really start to play with energy and really start to connect with another human being. This is beautiful stuff, but it requires putting down the cell phones. It requires getting off technology. It requires really participating in life, in reality, and in this energetic exchange that takes place. I mean, it is super important that in this world with so much technology, that if we want to create a stateless society, right? If we want to create a world where we are not so easily controlled by the powers that be, love does conquer all. And when you can really love yourself and find your inner strength and your inner power, you partner with another human being or a group of human beings who are in that same state, oh my word, what can you not do? That's what I want to know. And so that leads me to two things. One, there's this book, The Way of the Superior Man. If any of you have not read it, I highly recommend it. I posted a link to it in the chat, I don't know, maybe 25 minutes ago. And what I really like about this book is that they talk about the need for masculine and feminine polarity in order for there to be sexual chemistry, right? You can have toxic polarity or you can have divine polarity. And the toxic polarity can be kind of personified by like the 1950s housewife in her high heels cleaning the house and the guy earning the money and being the man and belting the kid. And, you know, like there's these like certain stereotypes that can show you what toxic polarity looks like. But everything in our universe works with a flow, right? Electricity has a positive and negative current. Electromagnetic fields, magnets, our planet, right? There's a positive and a negative, and that is how the species exists in terms of procreation and really in terms of flowering and blooming into something really, really powerful, is that we need that polarity. And that can be between two men or two women, but someone has to be masculine, someone has to be feminine in order for this sexual chemistry to exist. And what I really like about this book is he talks about moving from this toxic state and into a state of balance, which is great. And we all need to know, because we're rugged individualists, libertarian anarchists, right? We need to know that we can take care of ourselves. I need to know that if I don't have a man in my life, that I can bring home the bacon. And I need to know that I can also cook the bacon and serve the children and raise the family, right? Those are important skills that I need to have as a human being. But when I meet a man who is balanced and who is in his divine, and I can lean into my femininity and he can lean into his masculinity, this creates this really beautiful give and take energetically between the masculine and feminine dynamic. And that's where I think strength really lies. And when we're talking about social conditioning and programming through movies and things like that, I believe that women are being trained by society to be very masculine, and that men are being trained by society to be very feminine. And there's nothing inherently wrong with this, but what happens is you get someone like me who comes out high masculinity and is just moving and shaking, doing all this activism, da-da-da-da-da. Then I get pregnant and all these feminine hormones kick in and I don't know how to function. And it takes me years to readjust and to realign. And I've manifested a very feminine partner. Now all of a sudden there's no chemistry between the two of us because I've moved into my femininity, right? And so it creates this imbalance. And so what's really interesting for me as an anarchist is exploring my femininity and exploring what it means to be a woman and to serve humanity. Because now that I've been doing this anarchy and activism and all that for 12 years, I've really come to this place where I feel like for me, as a human being, as an individual, the greatest gift that I can give is to be a mother and to raise sovereign people who understand boundaries, who understand consent. And I also understand that in order to do that in a way that raises free people, I need to be partnered with a divine masculine who can create that safe container for me to do that. And so, you know, I don't need a state to tell me how to function. I don't need a state to dictate over my life, but that's a thing that exists in this world as well, right? And so how do we create these families and create these units within this culture, within this society where the state exists, where marriages are documented, where children are documented? How do we navigate through that, protecting ourselves energetically, legally, financially, all of these things, but still play into these roles? I want to play into that role. I want to play into my femininity, but I have also learned through experience that that puts me at risk in this world where there's a state and the state can be turned on me and I can, you know, so it's a really interesting time for me, as I start to explore these concepts, how do I exert my highest self within this world of chains and barriers and expectations and the state, and, all of that?
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Talking about how two people can really create some magic together. I think it's super powerful. Going back to the tantra, the energy, and then also I think one of you ladies mentioned about being present. I think that's one of the key or initial elements of tantra, and healthy relationships. So yeah, put the phones down, and then my intention and kind of put this out there in the universe is to create trust within relationships. So especially intimate relationships, right? Because now you have these different apps, so you can go off and fool around if you want to. So how to develop that trust, I think, seems to be the most vital aspect of a relationship, especially with your children. I think it was Piazza talking about, when your child trusts you, then you can have that conversation about trust. But when your partner trusts you and you trust them, now you can actually start building upon that, which is why when that trust is broken, and not like in a small thing, but like in a big way that trust is broken, you got to start all over again if the partner wants to participate in the relationship again. And a lot of times it is the sex that causes that break in the relationship. And so I think without having a clear intention of what we're doing here, and maybe, I don't know if it's too weird to say, hey, here's my intention in the relationship. What is your intention? I mean, can you say that like on the first date? Can you say that how many dates in or something? Because it is a delicate dance.
And I think it's important. I mean, if you ask somebody what their intentions are and they get pissy or they cut you off, that's great information to have. You didn't want to be going down that road with that person anyway. And the partner I have right now, I met at Anarchapulco, Anarchy is for Lovers, and we've been together almost 2 years. And, the day after he kissed me for the first time, he sat me down and said, how do you feel about what just happened? And to me, it was the most romantic thing. I had never had a guy ask me that before. And I was like, dang, who are you? This is incredible. And he sat down and he asked me that. No one had ever asked me that before, ever. So yes, ask on the first date. Get clear, because they're going to tell you straight up what the truth is. And you don't want to tiptoe around it or get 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years into a relationship just to find out what you could have found out in the first 5 minutes.
Yep. And
to
I think
answer your question.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, because that was a sincere question, because we're all rapping here and trying to learn from you guys. Just so you guys are watching live or later, this is conscious community, right? We're having sincere questions, compassionate, empathic answers, and not coming because we know it all. We're coming because we don't know it all, right? And that's what Socrates said. There's only one thing that I know, and that's that I know nothing. So really coming with the learner's mind, it's like we're trying to explore and expand our own understanding of our own relationships and other relationships, because we don't want heartbreaks and these hurt feelings. What we want is intergenerational freedom. We want to empower the young people, and as Kat mentions often so time with her friends, to just create a lot of voluntarist, freedom, anarchist children so they can keep going with this thing, because the state is not backing down. They're going to keep using these tools, and not even the state, also like mega corporations using like Miller Lite and all these things, beautiful lady and the beer. Well, if our love languages for many guys is physical touch and appearance, then we see that the bikini and the beer, and they do that year after year after year. Our subconscious is just eating all that up. We're like, all right, the beer and the woman. And so I think what we're talking about here is a new paradigm, not just in how societies run, but in relationships and everything going forward. Like, what is what is an intimate relationship? What is an education? What is a healthy sexual relationship? Empowered, love-filled relationship? What is the world of freedom that we desire? And these are sincere questions. And Piazza, you raise your hand. What do you think?
And wait, before you start, Piazza, whatever you're going to say that. But also, I know that you teach Tantra. So if you could just lay out what Tantra is for anyone in the audience who doesn't know what it is, that would be excellent.
Thank you. Well, actually, I never call myself a Tantra teacher, even though people keep calling me that. I'm an intimacy coach, a somatic sexologist, and I do incorporate tantric exercises in workshops that I share. But I don't call myself a tantra teacher. Yeah. And so what I was going to say is love is a state of relaxation. Michael was asking what love is. And Osho is responsible for saying that. Love is a state of relaxation. And the thing is that when we feel safe to share our boundaries and we recognize that our boundaries are being respected, that's where we can develop trust. That's where we can start to relax. When I feel safe, I know I can say no to you, and you're not going to try to push my boundaries or change what my feeling is at that time. I know I can trust you. So somewhere I wanted to say that it was in response to something that somebody said. I think David and Michael, something about love. Yeah.
Yeah, no, just a new paradigm. And that's really cool because we don't ever hear about that, like boundaries. Like there's got to be some type of flow chart, or maybe we're co-created together of boundaries and trust and love and all that together, because we can create, because we can do it intimately with, partners, but then at a community level, this is the next conversation, right? How do you have neighbors and communities in a village, in a town? Because just like Sharon, Mexico, who has 20,000 people and no state effectively, they've done that over time. And so we want to duplicate something like that, in my opinion, or a new paradigm or a new model that is based on boundaries, based on consent, based on trust, because we have to transcend the state. It's not going to be Trump or Biden and those people, as we all agree, but we have to show them another way. Because if all we know, if all the only tool that we have is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. And it's like this political problem, this is the solution. No, we have to transcend it. So I'm hearing boundaries and trust and love and consent continually here. So maybe it's boundaries, and just understanding what you feel comfortable, what I feel comfortable. And like you said, if you can say no without me flipping out, then it's like, then I can reciprocate. It's like, we can be totally happy because it's not personal, right? It's actually just expressing what we want and what you want. And it's no longer like oh, you hurt my feelings because I'm not worthy. No, I'm worthy, you're worthy, and we have to heal ourselves in order to manifest these new paradigms, I believe.
Okay, so
go ahead. Go ahead.
Riddle me this. Okay, I'll come back to you, Michael, because I have a question. In this context of what we're talking about, boundaries, trust, consent, love, is it then that the role of the state in its current form is to enforce boundaries, right? When it comes to sexuality, to marriage, or what is the purpose of the state, and how then do we replace it with voluntary action? Because this is what's coming up for me while you're saying that, is like, okay, those things, yeah, I want to build a community on those. So what is it that the state is trying to do with their marriage licenses, with their, laws about sodomy or whatever? Are they trying to protect someone through some sort of boundary preservation? I saw, Angel, you shaking your head. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah. Well, the state has no place, and what it is trying to do, it isn't anything. It's individual people trying to enforce their preferences and boundaries on other people. But boundaries are individual. So where my boundary is, and individual and changing, as Payasa said, where my boundary is, someone else's isn't. You might get away with touching me on the shoulder where someone else will consider that a violation. And the state, and I don't want the state making everything, taking the boundaries of other people and creating laws around them such that I can't interact with people in the way that feels good to me. When there is consent, there is no place for the state in that, because again, it's creating one size fits all. Everybody has to do it. And then who are we basing this? When it gets down to it, if every one of us has our individual boundaries and the state has to cater to us all, then the boundaries get greater and greater, right? The constraints on how you can live get greater and greater. And then you are just scared to do anything. No act of individuality is okay. That's why there's no place for the state. The place for us, what we do is get right with ourselves, get right with our boundaries, and get really good at enforcing our boundaries, at communicating our boundaries. That's what I think needs to happen.
All right, I agree. And I saw Moose saying the state is a manipulation and distortion of boundaries. And I think that's true. They corrupt the minds through the school system, through media, the political system. The state, dude, if the state just obeyed the Constitution, like I partially agree, because it's like self-defense and property, defense of property rights. But it's evolved so beyond its scope and its monetary benefits. And basically, I think Colonel Ed Mandel House, I think is the name, but he actually described the Social Security system. Remember, before 1933, there was no Social Security number and all these different licenses and permits. It's all a money-making scheme. And there's a French word I learned in a seminar like a month ago by a gentleman named David Strait about creating new entities. And basically, when you register your child with the state, you are now registering them, because the real owner doesn't need to register anything. But like when you register it with them, you're now saying you take ownership of it, and then the anticipated revenue that child's now going to generate, the state can now play bankroll and bonds and futures based on the future value of that child. I'll try to find the term here before the end of the show, but the state is intergenerational organized crime. That's all I can say. It's a tool of manipulation, just like the divine right of kings was a tool of manipulation. And we see that's now evolving out, like the younger princes, they're like, we don't want to participate in whoever was like Meghan Markle's husband or whatever. And like, they're starting to see, we don't want to participate in this thing because there's no support on it. And so if we can take humanity to realize the presidents, the governors, the county supervisors, these guys, if anything, maybe at a local city level, but it's still based on coercion. And I posted something on Facebook. There was a town of 5,000 that totally disbanded their town because the politicians were increasing taxes so much, and they just got together and voted to disband the city. So because they couldn't, they didn't want to pay any more taxes. And so I'm in California. I think it's called Prop 13 about property taxes. There was a limit on it. Maybe that's a federal law, but it's like, imagine you pay off your house and you still got to pay the state 1% every year, and your retired grandmother or grandfather. I mean, it's a criminal organization. And for me, just having the clear language to describe that helped me so much, because it's not like, it's just a few bad apples in this institution. The institution is bad. And so just kind of a long response to your answer, Kat, I think it's the community who realizes this flag or this entity, we don't need them. And so how can we figure out amongst ourselves? We mentioned negotiation earlier. I think that's a really important skill, because it's like in a relationship, intimate relationship, as many of us know, we actually have to serve the other person, or we get the opportunity to serve the other person, and maybe they will reciprocate, or maybe they won't. But this is not a horse trade. True love is giving and serving, and if it's received from the right heart, I think you naturally reciprocate, because we actually like to serve. When someone's receptive to our love, it's like it makes us feel good. At least for me, but like, and then from the other side too. But when someone's like, no, you have to do it, this is my house, or I pay the bills. It's like, now what are we? Now we're like at the flea market, right? And so instead of having the infinite love and value that we have as lovers and equal human beings, now it's like, oh, well, it's your turn to clean the house, or it's your turn, I did laundry. It's like, no, I love you, right? So how to help us transcend from a conscious level, where it's like we're no longer trading in that aspect of it, but like maybe negotiating little small things, like, oh, you chose the movie last time, or, you chose the kind of dinner last time, and you can have playful like little skits and games like that. But to come into a relationship, I think it's give all, and if you're with the right person, I think they reciprocate. And then from a community aspect of it, it's like that drop in a pond. It kind of ripples out. And I think that's what's happening through Anarchapulco and these various events that are getting together. We're finding the love magnets, we're finding the freedom magnets that are like, we want this, and we don't know how the hell it's gonna like manifest in 2 or 5 or 10 years, but we're getting the right molecules, humans, together, and we're like, we're gonna figure this out. There's blockchain stuff, there's other solutions, there's nonviolent communication happening, and like even that alone is like, dude, how awesome that we don't have to aggress in our language, but we can listen and be present and kind of hear what they're saying, and I hear you, and and then kind of go back and forth. And I think that's how these solutions and these key problems are going to be resolved. But kick out the state, we don't need them.
Yeah, David, so here's what I'm hearing. I'm going to do some reflective listening here to David and Angel. I'm hearing that the role of the state, and to some people in the chat, is manipulation, mass boundary enforcement and implementation, and tracking and monetization of the people. But as free sovereign people, when it comes to romantic relationships, the things that we can do to circumvent the state include boundaries, building trust, consent, coming from a place of love, and communication and negotiation. And with that being said, Michael, I know that you had something to say. Chime in.
I'm going to do some reflective listening too as well, because I heard some things that I really like. I mean, I certainly think that trust is one of those things that we can absolutely do a better job at, because I think that's really one of the multipliers of relationships that, is being diminished in society. And, as a community, I think that's one of the things, and certainly something we've done at Anarchapulco. I know, last year being in charge of volunteers, one of the things that I wanted to do was, and I instructed all the volunteers on this, is, we really want to welcome people, and make them feel like, welcome home, essentially, and create that feeling that you're welcome here. That's something that, like, the rest of society, they don't value each other. We want to every single person. We want to value them. We see they've got value, and we want to bring it out. And that's the thing we can do through expressing our love to each other, allowing each other to build trust with each other, and also the kind of showing respect for ourselves as well as for each other in just the things that we do. Like doing what we say we're going to do. The society has been conditioned away to the point that they don't even believe in themselves. They can't even do something for themselves. And this is, there's so much self-doubt. And that's what we've got to replenish. We've got to do that. And I think that's the thing about Anarchapulco that we can, I think we've got a lot of potential to grow that loving atmosphere and really start to be supportive of each other and, express the support we have for each other. And that, I think that can really, make this event 10 times more important than it is now. But I don't know. What do you guys got to say on that?
I completely agree with you, Michael. And honestly, that's how I feel when I'm at Anarchapulco. I feel like I'm at home with my people. It's why I stayed for 8.5 months total between the last two Anarchapulcos that I went to. I mean, I love the community, and I love the love, and I love the way we've been working through conflict. There is conflict within our community. That's inevitable. We're human beings. And I love how many people are dedicated to becoming better communicators and better people and working through conflict. So with that being said, I want to remind everyone, Conversations in Anarchy, that's what this is all about. It's bringing that home feeling, that family feeling to the internet so that we can get together and come together once a week and celebrate one another and explore these topics as we build up momentum toward the in-person event. Now, I do want to ask if there's anyone else who wants to chime something in, please raise your hand, because we've already gone past the hour. We've got, we've gone 30 minutes past the hour. I want to start kind of wrapping things up. So if there are people who want to say something, I would like for you to raise your hand. And I was thinking it would be kind of fun for Angel, David, myself, Payasa, if you're interested, anyone else, if we could give maybe some tips, some advice, some things that we like, some things that we don't, and maybe get a little fun with it. So if any of you have something that you want to talk about when it comes to relationships that you think might be relevant to people here on this call or watching the replay, now would be a really good time to bring it up. Angel, do you have anything?
Tips. Okay. Honesty. I mean, I think that's the most obvious one. Be honest. That allows people to see who you are truly and truly connect with who you really are. It allows people to feel safe with you when you're honest. And so that's a big thing. For me, that's the biggest thing is like, how honest are you? Are you presenting some sort of image to me, or am I looking at the real person? Because I'm much more interested in who you really are than who you think I want you to be. So or who you think women want you to be. I'm very interested in the real. So that's probably my biggest one. That's the biggest one, is just be honest, just be yourself, because that's whatever your weirdness is. I like whatever that weirdness is, whatever that unique you-ness is. That's kind of what gets my attention.
Loving that. What about you, David?
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. You can only be you and I can only be me. So like, it's so challenging to be that self when we've programmed it, but honesty is a really huge one. One of the best pieces of advice I heard from the poet and comedian Roberto Benigni, he said, we always love too little, too late, and there's no such thing as wasted love. And so like, we're always waiting to give our love to somebody, something like that. Well, first give it to yourself and then give it out. You have unlimited, love that you can give. We don't have love. We are love. We are generators of love. And for me to come into knowledge about what I like and prefer has been helpful, right? Because there's all these images or ideals that parents and society and the state and blah, 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 all these people who don't know you, right, generally, try to impute upon you, but ultimately is to discover what it is that's inside of us. And so, and then discover what it is and have courage to speak that. We're saying before is the intentions. I think that's some of the work that I'm on, the path that I'm on now, and doing some of that inner work, because I don't want to hold in what wants to just burst out of me, especially with these ideas of freedom. We really, not to like toot all your guys' horns or Anarchapulco, like we're the visionaries. We're seeing the left-right paradigm has failed. And so we're trying to push, our children forward and push humanity forward. And so it is through love, through honesty, through being courageous. I think realizing that there's no such thing as wasted love, but to give. Oh, the last part was this. Another poet, you mentioned, trying to have your heart not be broken is very foolish. He said, no matter who it is, whether it's your children or an intimate relationship or, other types of close relationship, you're going to have your heart broken. You just get to choose the person that you have your heart broken with, because you have your heart, you fall in love, you fall out of love, you fall in love, you fall out of love. But it's through the heart breaking that it gets stronger and stronger. And then it goes to the point that we are generators of love. We are love, and we just have abundance until the day our last breath blows out of us. I say give it all, or as much as you want.
Loving that. What about you, Payasa? Do you have any advice or tips for people who are seeking love or who are in love?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing would be stop falling. Don't fall in love, just be love. And I think I would like to share just a little exercise to start becoming more aware of one's own boundaries. And that would be pause. That's like, if somebody asks you, could you do something for me, or whatever the situation is, whether, whatever kind of relationship you're in, if you don't know, like really pause for a moment. You can put your hands on your belly, just take a deep breath and feel how it feels somatically in your body to say yes or to say no. And really, if we can start to honor that, our own GPS inner navigation system, we will live more of the life that we want to live, and we will be more authentic with people. And this is really to me, the whole basis of when I think about anarchy. Anarchy is self-governed. I'm not governed by my conditioning or by the expectations of others. I'm governed by myself. And in this situation, because I'm a somatic therapist, I'm governed by my body, not by my mind, what I think I should and should not do. So anyway, my parting words is just pause. Pause and feel and trust yourself.
I love that. I actually took a workshop in August at this event called Rethinking Everything, and this girl was talking about bringing humor and fun, and she had a thing, pause, where you actually make pause with your hands, like an animal pause, and it's a way to like create humor, create a boundary, to create a moment, to kind of laugh. So just pause. And the whole room was laughing hysterically, and, and we would just pause. And, it gives you a moment to kind of check out and to reset and to laugh a little bit. So we did have 2 people speak up in the chat that they would like to say something, and I told them I was going to call on them. The first is Moose, and I'm trying to see if I can see. You're not unmuted. Can you unmute yourself? Unmute yourself, Moose? Welcome.
Can't hear him.
I don't. No audio.
Microphone might be off.
Is it here? Is it good now?
His headset.
Okay, yeah, gotta make sure. First, it was really just saying thank you. All these conversations, as we saw it go, how a lot of them are interconnected, from like the relationship, communication, education, and really like kind of like anarchy isn't like one thing. So it's kind of like mostly a thank you. I talk about my younger siblings a lot when these conversations, because it's very anecdotal for me. I talk to my sister, we talk about relationships, communication, even with parents, or even like whether it's with sex or serious relationships. So I've seen with my youngest sister about 2 years ago, I only asked her one question. She was more into the free love and extreme leftist, I'm going to call it hippy dippy, even though I don't mean that offensively. It's she was getting that kind of thing mostly because of our mother and lack of communication, and she was really not doing so hot. I mean, I left home and all that. So I asked her one question, and that was, well, how are you going to enforce that? And from that moment 2 years ago, everything's a complete 180, and she's like, oh, wait. And just recently, I've talked to her. I have to go back home to Delaware to the farm, take care of family, which this whole relationship, she's turning 18, and she has a boyfriend, and she's had a lot of questions. And really, with relationships, a lot to do with family and communication. So being able to communicate with her and helping her learn to communicate with others around her, being able to communicate with my father, even to this day, this last holiday season, you got the turkey talk, being able to go home and just talk with people. It's just, I don't know, I guess what I'm saying, it's amazing how anarchy as a whole everything's interconnected, from this sex talk to education talk to down with the government. But really, what's a quote? Kill you with peace or something like that. Like, everyone thinks anarchy is the bombs and taking down government violently. Is really no, you can kill it with peace, just like these conversations. So yeah, thank you. That was about it.
I love that, and I really appreciate that, because it is all connected, and anarchy is really a state of mind. And when we all enter that state of mind together and we start vibing on the frequency of love, I think we really can create something beautiful together. So thank you for speaking up today, Moose, and chiming in. I'm really grateful for that, both in the chat and on video. So the next person who spoke up and said that they wanted to say something was Simone. If you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself. Let's see. Simone, are you able to unmute yourself? There you go.
Yep, I got it. It was covered by something else. Anyway, hi. the one tip or whatever is, you know, I'm a little bit older than you guys, and I've been through a lot of this stuff, and I'm sitting back here listening going, oh my God, is it really that bad out there? Like all this, you know, not having lived there for over 4 years now, it's, you know, I'm not subjected to all that. But anyway, one of the things that I found is really crucial in a relationship, no matter who it is listen. That pause, like Piasa said, the pause as well. I've learned that being here at Lake Atitlan, we have all the workshops, so it's been really kind of cool there. But listen, like really engage your ears and listen to people, because especially in this day and age, people are saying things, but they're not saying it like straight up. You know, like they might say that they're okay, but they're not, type of thing. And I have found that to be like super important. But yeah, I'm glad that I've had wonderful relationships, and I learned about boundaries early on. We did have an Uncle Purvey in our family, and they lived in Germany. We were in Canada, so it wasn't a constant thing. But anyway, yeah, man, good luck out there. This sounds crazy. It really was intense hearing all of these, like, there's all these rules of engagement, you know. Anyway, we're all going to be fine. We just have to work through this. This is cool. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. It really is a brave new world. And here we are. We are stepping out of the 1984 double think, double speak, and we're learning how to interact really heart to heart. And I appreciate what you're saying about listening. So I'm going to read through these tips. And then Angel and David, if you'd like to give a closing statement, so just, you know, be thinking for a second. Here's the tips that I wrote down that we just went over as a group. Honesty, authenticity, love yourself and then give it away. Self-discovery, courage to be yourself. Stop falling in love and be love. Listen, pause, and eye contact. I saw in the chat, Ken. It didn't come in through video, but that one came in the chat. So thank you guys for giving these tips. I feel like this has been a really awesome conversation. I want to read over a couple more themes that came up. Boundaries, trust, consent, love, and communication/negotiation. These are all really important points that we covered. So Angel, I see you're unmuted. If you would like to give some closing thoughts, I would love to hear from you.
Yes. Payasa, thank you so much, because you said a thing that has really connected with me, and how I feel is just be love, right? I love that. That's my favorite thing I've heard today. So thank you. And I think that's what it is. And if you are that, then you're going to come into contact with so many wonderful energies, and you're going to be in love all the time, every day, with many people for many different reasons. And enjoy that. Enjoy giving that away and receiving it as well. Yeah, this is, you know, relationships are hard. It's give and take, but I think they're less hard when you really respect the humanity of others. You respect people where they are, respect that they have their own desires and needs, and that they're trying to meet their needs. And if they're doing the same thing with you, then it can be beautiful. It can be really beautiful. So I am excited. I'm excited to see you all. You know, if you're single and you're going to be at Anarchapulco, just let us know, asking for a friend. And I will be there and single too. David,
That's
what
awesome.
about you?
Yes.
Are you single,
yeah.
David?
I am. Yeah, I'm a single man, and this conversation is powerful. You know, utilizing sex for the goodness that it does in reproduction, in pleasure and empowerment, and connecting with another soul. I think it's a really amazing gift that universe or God or consciousness, infinite source, whatever you believe in, gave us and created us through. So I hope we can speak to our young people about this, help them understand their boundaries, help them and demonstrate to them that they own their body. And despite the deprogramming that we have to do, how exciting to empower them with that truth. And maybe they will perpetuate that for generations to come. They'll be the light, they'll be the one. And I hope you all come to Anarchapulco. I'm enjoying the shares you guys are putting here on video and in the comments, because this is a drop that's creating waves. We don't know what's going to happen, but thankfully we have a great IT team behind us. So they're recording this and they're going to upload it. And really, I hope you guys do come out to Anarchapulco. The great musical acts, the great fun, the conversations, the stages, crypto, everything else. I'm excited, man. Seriously, this is going to be my 6th year in a row, and I keep going back, not because of all the great speakers alone, but for you guys. And as Michael mentioned, I feel the love every time I go there. I get excited. My vibration is high for like 4 or 5 days. You blink and it's over. You're like, oh man, I got to go back again. I want to live with these guys. I want to be neighbors with these people, and keep creating positive change and empowering humanity through the conversation of freedom and peace and love, as you all are. So I hope I see you guys there.
Yeah, awesome. I'm so excited to be there. And do I hear that Angel and David are hosting a singles mingle? Just kidding. Maybe I'm not kidding.
Who knows? We got. It's a hard conversation, but like we can try to facilitate something. Brittany will be there, but like how to do it, we'll go online. There's a group actually called the Anarchapulco Connections. I think Caroline tried to do that last year. But if you guys got ideas how to help the singles mingle, go join that group and contribute, because it's not an easy task to say, okay, we're going to be dating stuff, conversations, what are we going to do? So anyway, join the group. There's going to be a lot of cool people there, single and coupled. Spread all that good consciousness and good love too.
All I know is I showed up single doing the work, right? I was working on myself and I met a man doing the work, and I've been in the most fulfilling relationship for the past 2 years. Thank you, Anarchapulco, for bringing me the most amazing man ever. It's awesome at Anarchapulco because you meet evolving people, and that's ultimately what this is all about. Anarchy is about self-ownership and really taking control of yourself and your life and owning it, truly owning it. And when you are owning your life from an authentic place, you are going to manifest people in your life who are doing the same. And as we find one another and we create families and we create friendships and we create businesses, we are going to build the most amazing society, the most amazing culture, the most amazing world that this planet has ever seen. Ever. It's going to be awesome, and I can already feel it happening. This is our responsibility as human beings, and that's the theme of this year's Anarchapulco is evolve, and that is what we are all trying to do right here, is to evolve and to become better versions of ourselves. So holidays are coming up. Some schedule changes I want to just drop in your ear. Next week, we're going to be talking all about Anarchapulco, what to expect. There's going to be speakers joining us on the call. It's going to be a really, really, really cool call. It's going to be really fun. We're going to be talking about the family. We're going to be talking about the tribe. We're going to be talking about what's happening this year, what's happened in the past. It's going to be a really fun conversation. We want to have you there. Please join us. And then we're going to be taking a break until January 7th so that we can go enjoy the holidays. I'm going to be in Italy. I was hoping to do a Conversations in Anarchy from Italy, but that would have been Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, and nobody's going to be tuned in because we're all out living our fantastic lives, getting offline, and enjoying the real world, right? That's right. That's our mission for today, since we've talked about that. So some final thoughts. Hotel rooms are available. Be sure to book yours at anarchapulco.com. We have announced the main stage speakers, the Dollar Vigilante speakers, the health and wellness speakers, and the family camp speakers. Anarchapulco.com. If you're not on our email list, you are missing out. Sign up on the email list. You're getting all sorts of announcements through there. We also have a blog that we are updating regularly. We have a great team of writers. If you have something you want to contribute, you are free to do so. Angel's been helping me edit. I am so grateful for all of her time, energy, and dedication to the blog. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Also on the website, you can find frequently asked questions. You can find what to expect. And of course, if you're already out there talking about Anarchapulco, like many of us do, there is an affiliate program where you can get 10% of the ticket price, and the person you give the link to can get 10% off. So it's a really great win-win situation. So if you're already out there saying, I love Anarchapulco, which is what I'm doing, all the time, then I suggest you sign up to become an affiliate. That is also at anarchapulco.com under Get Involved. So with that being said, thank you to everybody who tuned in today from Zoom. We are not streaming today. Did I hear something? Oh, nope. Okay. I thought maybe the moderator was speaking up. All right. Thank you, guys. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I enjoy these conversations. I look forward to them every single week. And I am a changed person every single week because of these conversations. Thank you, guys. I hope you have a really great day. Peace, love, and anarchy.
Peace, love, and anarchy.
See y'all there.
Anarchapulco, it's so hype, I'm trying to tell ya. This the event of the year and best vacation ever. Ron Potter, Jeffrey Tucker, just to name a few. Get your tickets, you don't wanna miss it. You should roll through, talking politics to health and self-improvement to investing. So many things, not one thing. Learn how to live life unchained, yeah. 4 days vibing on the beach, time to connect, all about growth. Way more than a conference, this is Anarchapulco, yeah. Let's go.
You ain't seen nothing yet.